You guys want to talk about saving babies?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a few weeks
Equally
old.
weighted.
But there is this gene editing technique called CRISPR that came to prominence in 2012. Very cool, revolutionary biology thing where basically we learned from a bacteria how you can basically snip a part of a DNA strand. So this is a big deal because we didn't have a way to like micro edit DNA before this, but we just found this bacteria that's been doing it and then like basically figured out how to copy them. So you pair this protein with an a gRNA, and you pair these together and it goes to a specific spot of a human's DNA, and then it snips the DNA and then you can recover it in some way. So that has been conceptually really amazing over the past like decade or so, but hasn't really been used on people yet. It's still mostly in trial stages of like, in theory, we can change people's genetics to do various things, but we don't. This is very difficult in practice. So then a few weeks ago, there was a baby who was born with CPS1, which is this basically extremely serious genetic disorder.
Okay.
Untreated, you've got like a week and you die.
Jesus.
And treated like aggressively, like the baby's living in the hospital for months or years, they're maybe gonna survive with severe neurological damage. So this is like an incredibly severe disease that is caused by a genetic mutation, like one gene that is basically wrong. It's like hundreds of people get this a year. It's not massive, but this baby was born with it, I think about 9 months ago. And immediately upon being born, they recognized that it's this horrible genetic disease. And this team set out to try to solve it using CRISPR. And so instead of the normal like decade to develop something custom, they did this over 6 months. And these doctors said like such speed to producing clinic grade CRISPR for a genetic disease has no precedent in our field, not even close. These steps traditionally take the better part of a decade, if not longer. But they managed to essentially map the exact genome of this baby to map exactly what their DNA sequence looks like, find using computer modeling the exact spot that was mutated in the genetic sequence, design a molecule through gRNA that can find that specific spot and then cut it and cause the body to basically replace it with healthy stuff. And it worked. So they saved this baby's
badass.
life a few weeks ago in May. This is the first time ever that CRISPR has been personalized and used on an actual baby. So they were able to like modify this thing, a genetic treatment for a specific person. And they're saying now that it's done, future treatments could be a lot cheaper by an order of magnitude at least, is what one of the doctors said. So CRISPR is maybe you've heard of it if you followed biology at all. Incredible potential to this thing. Like, for example, in theory, we can cure Huntington's disease, which kills like 250,000 people. I don't know if that's a year or in general who have it, but that's fatal. That's a single gene mutation. We could like cut and cure that. Alzheimer's risks. You could find the genes that increase the risk for Alzheimer's, edit those, which I think many, tens of millions of people every year who are dealing with that. Curing HIV. HIV is crazy because it gets into your DNA, like it embeds itself into your DNA, and we could, in theory, have CRISPR that goes in and like snips it. And then even the changing people's genes before they're born is where it gets kind of crazy sci-fi. And there's a famous example of this in 2018 where this scientist in China just went solo and just edited embryos. I don't know if you guys heard about this.
That's scary to me.
No, this is still good news. So he talked to patients. He like found some people, like couples who like one parent had HIV and the other didn't. So the baby's at risk for HIV. And then he edited embryos and then implanted them into the women. And one of the women had twins. And he went to jail for 3 years because the entire scientific community was like, what the fuck, man?
I remember this.
Yes. It's like,
yeah,
deeply unethical shit. So, but the wild thing is it could work, And so while there's many ethical questions right now, and CRISPR isn't perfectly precise, there's various things. One of the things to remember is that you have a copy of your DNA in every cell. So it's not like you go and change one cell. You sort of have to get the changes to propagate through the whole body. So there's challenges with that and making sure it hits the right thing. But in theory, in our lifetime, probably accelerated by what just happened with this kid, we could have designer babies where
that's not what I.
Oh, the good news. This is good news.
You said good
Where, and these are all.
You Trojan horse.
No. It's time for another wacky segment.
No,
okay. It's time for Would You Mod Your Baby?
No.
Okay. No.
Come on, you wouldn't slide your doctor a 50 to give him green eyes. Like,
I want green eyes.
Okay, this is possible. Okay, this is hypothetical. This is theorized to be possible. You mod your baby. You snip a few genes, and they only need 5 hours of sleep. every night. Pirate Software, another content creator, is I've talked to him about this. He only genetically needs 4 to 5 hours of sleep. His body functions perfectly fine on it. He's talked to doctors about it. That's why he streams like 20 hours a day. He just
That's what I
literally.
want my kid to do is stream 20 hours today.
He's one of the actual people.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
You
So
know
Pirate
those people
Software.
who will be like, yeah, I only need 6 or like 5 hours.
Yeah, they're like
But they're clearly
zombies.
fucking
They're
miserable.
exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah, but they just do it. But there is a
Yeah, I just drink 2 Monsters every day and I'm good. It's like,
No.
You're tweaking.
No, he genuinely operates as well as everybody else, maybe even better. The dude's crazy in terms of like how much he works and how much he does. 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Would you do that? Would you give that to your kid?
No, I would be annoyed. I won't get any sleep because my kid's up all the time.
That's
That's a
exactly
good point.
I'll modify to give him 18 hours of sleep and then I can.
Okay, all right. Wait, follow up because this is, I think, relevant for you.
Okay.
This is legitimately possible, potentially in our lifetimes, potentially in the next decade or two. You edit the genes so they never go bald.
First of all, this is a powerful gene, and I don't think you can. I don't think you can edit. I think it's deep in there.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's
It'll
impossible.
fight all the
CRISPR.
box
They
some
can't
way.
CRISPR this out. That kid's going bald. Dude, you know what it makes me think of is like some rich parent is gonna make their kid LeBron James.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he's gonna show up to my kid's youth basketball camp and he's gonna be 7'4" at 14 years old.
Okay, so let me get into that. So here, the next two are
Okay,
these are
okay.
real serious things that I think are a little more genuinely, as a parent, consider this.
Okay.
If you were told that you can enhance their brain power, there are genes related to memory and learning to where your kid could have a stronger capacity for learning things, for mental processing, for memory. Would you, let's say the risks are mostly gone. Obviously, if this is some high risk thing, probably not. But would you give your kid that opportunity? Let's say 20 years from now.
So I'll give you my answer. It is similar to me to like taxes, where I don't want it to be each person's individual moral choice to whether
Yeah.
or not they pay more or whether they use the best methods they have to pay less taxes. I just want it to be enforced that if we all collectively decide as a society that this is kind of weird, that we just don't allow it. I don't want to have to be in the hospital and have to check the box of whether or not I decide if my kid is going to be
You're right.
Okay.
competitive.
I want to posture a scenario
Okay.
here because there's a bit of a doomer scenario.
All right. We're getting off the rails.
Oh, it's the good news episode.
Okay.
But if you say it's just about brain power, say
Yeah.
we're only talking about that, it's to increase your cognitive ability and how much you remember. This is the only thing we're talking about for the moment. If you regulate that in your country,
Yeah.
and then other countries choose not to regulate
People are
it,
flying to
And then-
China to have or
I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about how if there's another massive nation of people where this becomes regular and they just outclass your group of people in every way because they allow this, but your country bans it.
Yeah, it's
Dude, this
It's
is
fucked.
fucked.
right. If you like right now, you're like, I'm struggling in the world and my parents,
Oh, it's the
they could have.
It's the good news app, dog.
It's like a circumcision,
you
it's like
Trojan horse me with the really nice first story.
My parents cursed me with this foreskin, and I wish they'd picked differently. Okay, last one. You could. This is possible in our lifetimes. Make them taller, more handsome, change skin and eye color, change facial symmetry, like a character creator in Skyrim. Would you handcraft your child to be an Adonis, or do you let them be an ugly piece of shit like natural?
God, it's
intended?
so funny. Imagine the scenario where everybody's doing this, but you just let your kid be ugly.
That's the thing.
It'd be kind of base.
Fucked up thing.
If everyone looks the same and you're like, I'm fucking.
No, you obviously
Would it
can't
like a
do
statement?
this. I think
Yeah,
this
like
is
ripped
exactly.
jeans. Like
it's
ripped
a
jeans.
It's like ripped jeans.
Yeah.
You can't. This is the exact line that people talk about. This is the end game of what people talk about with the risks of this stuff, which is like the
Yes.
genetic,
Yeah.
the changing cosmetic genetic things. And I hadn't really thought about the cognition thing as much, but you just fundamentally. This is just eugenics. Like this strays into too far into eugenics, and you can't do this. I think you lose too much of humanity. Like that's the simple way of putting it. I don't know that I realize that me relaying that platitude on Lemonade Stand of the podcast doesn't solve the problem down the line. I don't know how we'll deal with this one.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll reground it in something that is just genuinely positive. I think the immediate use for this type of stuff that we're going to see soon is identifying genetic defects in babies and just simply eliminating a lot of preventable disease and challenges. So that's going to be the first step before you start modifying eye color or anything like that. That stuff's a little more way down the road. But in our lifetimes, I think there's a real. I mean, like if I have a child, which I don't know if I will yet, but I was told, hey, we can go in and stop them from having sickle cell anemia. Like that's a big fucking deal, and I absolutely would do that. And this is going to be something soon that we're going to at least have the option for. And there's weird ethical choices, but man, to prevent horrific disease, is exciting to me.
I would never want to give up on the opportunity to deal with stuff like that. I think condemning children to a short lifetime of suffering and not pursuing it when you know you could is terrible. The regulation around it will just need to be so strict and standardized. And I think it'll be so important for there to be some sort of globally unified approach on the issue.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where once it gets out of the bag somewhere, it's people are going to want it. In the same vein, the tax example was good. This idea that when you let it come down to individual choice and morals, there are inevitably a subset of people that will make the decision to do it, and that lets all these other people do it behind them because their logic is, I'm just trying to keep up, or I'm just trying to be fair. And then there's such long-term horrific consequences from the technology, but in the short term, I think in the direction, like, why are we starting with something like this, right? It's because this is what people primarily want to use the technology for, and I think that's important.
Yeah, there's incredible, just straight up medical potential. And fortunately, that's what's going to come first before we have to debate the big ethical questions. Like my final question, which is, let's say you're in the hospital, you just delivered your baby, and you realize Ludwig's son is next to you in the bassinet, and the lab technician comes over and nudges you and like, hey, you want to edit him a little bit? Do you edit Ludwig's child to make him bald?
I don't need to. Bro, he's turning 30. You're going to see it. You're going to see it.
That's
bro.
wishful
It's
thinking.
hiding in there.
That's wishful thinking.
It's not wishful thinking.
It's holding strong, bro.
No.
I can't even joke about it.
You don't just increase the slider on your kid's height, decrease Ludwig's kid's height just a little bit, you don't? You're a good friend?
My kid.
I wouldn't consider it, by the way. I wouldn't even
This
suggest
is a
it.
good. We
Okay.
regulate it really closely, unless it's for pranks on influencers. Children.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
I think
If
that's
it's just
fair.
a prank, then I think
If
it's
it's a
acceptable.
prank, you can do it.
That's a
and
comfortable.
if it's an
amendment.
influencer, we all agree. I mean, it's
Yeah.
worth making fun of them. I have another good news story. There was a big cancer conference in Europe, specifically
You said cancel culture?
cancer conference.
Oh,
Actually, it was in Chicago. I'm sorry. In Chicago recently, they had a cancer research conference where a bunch of doctors came out. And somebody came up with a well-done, peer-reviewed, long-term longitudinal study about exercise as a treatment for cancer. Basically, as in comparison to, it's for colon cancer specifically, and it was in comparison to chemotherapy. Okay, they just compared it. And, what often doctors will do is they will say, remember to exercise. Or they'll give you this one was like, we're going to try treatment where you are assigned a personal trainer. You have to specifically do this number of things 4 or 5 days a week. They tried it. It was shockingly, remarkably proven effective. And it got a standing ovation from all these cancer researchers who are showing that consistently taking care of your health, going on walks, doing high intensity exercise or whatever, is one of the body's proven best ways to actively fight disease. This case specifically for colon cancer. And by the way, what they mentioned in this is there's no reason you can't now do both. Because I think it had a 5% increase in survival when they did the chemo, and it was 7 or 8 with the intense exercise. You can combine them both and have, again, the examples they use is 1 in 12 people who would have died will now survive. I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call from my cancer research buddy.
Oh,
who's
Getting canceled.
Actually, the study's blown wide open. It's just not true. So this is comparing people who are exercising with the assigned parameters.
So there was
that you
3
said.
groups. One of them is chemotherapy, just the standard thing. One of them was they gave them the normal thing they tell them, which is like, take care of your health, do exercise. And then one of them was like, they took it seriously. And they had government, and I would say they had hospital funds applied to, you get a personal trainer, and you're going to have a regimen. And what it's basically saying is like, people that did that, it really was remarkable, the impact. In a way that got all these cancer researchers standing up.
Are those people also doing chemo though? Or
No,
are they doing just the
It was a comparison
assigned
between
exercise?
chemo and the exercise. And the exercise people had a higher result. The chemo was effective, but only, it's a small percent. This is like late stage colon cancer. So like 5% more survive from the. Anyway, I'm not saying it's the world's most positive news or anything, but it's just interesting. And I think there's a positivity to it that I think a lot of the doctors were saying, which is like, hey, if we can get this proven to the point where it unlocks funds or unlocks, health insurance funds or whatever, this could be a big deal because anyone can do it. There's not danger to it. There's no downside to the exercise. It's a pure upside. And if it has the effect that it does, which is higher than chemo, and you can combo it with chemo, I mean, you could get a lot more people living and they're healthier. And it can help just unlock a larger trend of like, this is important and has great positive knock-on effects.
It reminds me of when we talked about the medical episode. One of the takeaways is an enormous amount of the health problems that we have in America are chronic health problems that are largely from people not taking care of themselves, right? And that's the truth. And it's in ways that that are just hard: eating healthy, exercising, not smoking, et cetera, et cetera. And so the more of this evidence that comes out, I mean, something my mom would drill into me over and over growing up is like how critical this stuff is and how hard it is for doctors to get people to stick with this stuff and do it. So the more evidence there is, it's like it sounds kind of silly and obvious, but the amount of benefits for cancer with everything is just so ridiculously high.
That is the exact line in here. I want to bring this up. It says, knowledge alone is likely to be insufficient to allow most people to make meaningful and sustained change. So this evidence, this proof, where they can start treating exercise like a drug, where a prescription is filled out, a trainer allotted, and a schedule adhered to, can make a massive. It's like they just like if this was an announcement of a new drug, the level of positive effect it had would be a massive breakthrough. Like, holy shit, we invented something crazy. But it doesn't even cost money. Someone can't patent it. They can't own it. All you have to do is just put someone on a schedule and make sure they stick to it, and they're going to have much better health outcomes. That's cool. I mean, it's much better than a world where this stuff doesn't work, where you just have no control. You need some kind of crazy new drug. If you don't get it, you're dead.
Doing it like a prescription, I've never heard that concept. That is really interesting.
So I thought it was cool. I thought
it's very hard to get people to having doctors I've spoke with. They're basically like, yeah, you can tell patients to do stuff, and then most of the time they come back. It's like I go to the dentist every 6 months, and he's like, "Hey, you using that retainer at night?" And I'm like, "Nah, next time though." And that's what it's like, And for in my case, it's not that big of a deal if I don't wear the retainer, but it is a really big deal if you're not, exercising, particularly if you have these diseases. So
it reminds me of a tweet that was like, those people who tell you to exercise and sleep more to deal with your depression are so annoying because that shit work. And I think it coupled, stuff like that, or I've been told the number one way to defend against developing like dementia or Alzheimer's later in life is just exercise. Like that is the number one documented thing you could do to prevent it later in your life. It's crazy how broadly applicable it is, and it feels like such a given, but it's just something that is really, really hard to instill in people. I'm trying to be better about it right now. I'm in a phase of life this year where I'm trying to be more disciplined and just make sure I do something like every day, and it helps. Like anecdotally, lower anxiety, better appetite, better sleep. Things just automatically improve in your life. It gives you this way better baseline. So to know that it could have as far-reaching benefits as something like this is awesome.
It's 3 extremely simple things. It is diet, sleep, and horse electrolytes. I am wired. I don't know if you guys noticed. I've been like stepping underneath the table.
Part 2 of this article, it says cancer is 99% cured when you just mainline
horse
electrolytes. Yeah.
I wonder what mine tastes
No,
like.
I'm taking another sip. What is your problem?
Mine looks like a brick.
It looks like you just ruined the iPad.
Zamboni.
No!